Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make grilled cheese Philly sandwiches. So basically what we're doing here is we're taking a grilled cheese sandwich and a Philly cheesesteak sandwich and merging them together to make a grilled sandwich, which has an amazing taste to it, and this is a great thing to eat. So we're going to start out with a large skillet, which I put in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and then I'm putting a cup of pepper onion blend. And if you don't know what that is, it's green peppers, red peppers, and onions that were frozen in a bag from your freezer section. However, if you do not have this, you can actually use a third of a cup of green pepper, a third of a cup of red pepper, and a third of a cup of onion sliced up, and you're going to get the same effect. So I've got the heat on medium high, and I'm going to cook these to thaw them and then get them to the point where they are cooking and the onions are becoming translucent and they've softened to a point where they work for a sandwich. So this is going to take probably about 4 to 5 minutes to get this really going here. But on medium high heat, we're going to keep stirring these up until they're cooked, until they look a lot like what I got going on my pan right now, because we want to make sure these are soft enough to use. And when they are cooked completely through, we're going to remove them from the pan to move to the next part of this, because we don't want to overcook these by leaving them in, but we're going to use the same pan to actually cook the meat that we're going to use. So just go ahead and make sure yours are cooked through and ready to use, and then go ahead and remove them to a plate, set it to the side, and then we're going to bring in the beef that's going to be used in the sandwich. And these are just like basically the things you get out of the freezer section, which are meant for Philly beef sandwiches or other things. They're just sliced beef. So to make the 2 sandwiches I'm doing, I need at least 6 of these to do, so that way it's got a lot of meat on it. And I'm going to heat these up, thaw them out in the pan, and then chop them up and then move them around a little bit to get them cooked all the way through, because we don't want them being pink. We want to turn them to the brownish color they're supposed to be. So let it heat up, and then once it starts getting hot, flip them over a little bit so that way the top side gets cooked as well and it's kind of evenly done, and it's not just the bottom getting the heat on these. Still on medium high heat. And we're going to go ahead and let these go. Now along the way, I'm going to add a little bit of seasoning to this. So I'm going to add less than like 1/4 of a teaspoon of garlic powder, and then maybe some kind of like beef seasoning or meat seasoning you want to put on there. It's your choice. I was using Memphis seasoning on here, which basically, like I said, less than 1/4 of a teaspoon. We just want enough in there to give it a little flavor. And then chop this up and mix it up, and just keep moving it around until you see that the pink is cooked out of it, because we really don't want the pink in there. So we're going to move this around, keep moving it, flipping it, doing whatever you got to do to get it cooked through. And this is going to take a couple minutes because there's quite a bit of meat in there from what I put in. But this also adds to the fact that you're going to have a lot of meat on the 2 sandwiches you're making, which is really good. Because that way you have something along with the peppers, and we're going to put cheese on it. It's going to have a really great taste when it's done. But it's going to remind you of a Philly cheesesteak, but with a decent amount of cheese on it and a grilled outer side of the bread we're using. So go ahead and keep mixing this until it's completely done. And then when we're finished with getting this browned, we are going to move this from the pan as well and set it to the side, because we're going to bring it back as we're grilling the bread for the sandwich. So once it's set aside, I'm going to do 1 sandwich at a time here, because my pan is not big enough to have 4 pieces of this bread, because this is Texas toast. This is not the freezer kind. This is the kind you get out of the bread aisle, and these are kind of thick and large, and I want to give them room to work. So you're going to put butter on both sides of your bread, put it into the pan, and we're going to like flip it back and forth and grill it until the bread gets browned on both sides, because you want a little bit of that grilled brown look to it on both sides of it before you add anything to it. Because the next thing we're going to do is layer this with some cheese, but we want this to have a crusty outer edge before we put the cheese on top, so it just doesn't sink straight into it. We want to give it something to hold on to here. So this is going to take a couple minutes to brown this, so along the way just flip it. If you have to use your fingers and your spatula to flip this back and forth, just remember this is a hot pan, and this bread will get hot, and the butter on it will get hot, so it's easy to burn your fingers, so be careful, don't do that. And we're just going to keep cooking this until we get to the point where we think it's brown enough. Now once we do get this browned and we're ready to go to the next step, this is where we're going to bring in some slices of provolone. We have some shredded mozzarella and a piece of American cheese. Because what I usually do with this is I use 1 whole circle of provolone, I use at least a handful of shredded mozzarella. That's kind of your choice how much you use. And then I take a piece of American cheese and just a half a slice goes on to each sandwich I make, because I don't want to overload it with the American. But when we get all of this in place on here, we're going to let it sit on top of the bread to melt. And that way we're ready after that to bring on the other toppings that we're going to put in the inside of this and then close up the sandwich. So we just need to keep going with this until it gets a browning effect on it. It's so easy to see when it's brown because there's this really grilled look to it, and that's what we really want to see. Now, it doesn't have to be on both sides. We just want to make sure that the grilling, when we flip it up to put the cheese on, is on the side that it's going on. And as you can see here, that's up. So there's a slice of provolone, a half a slice of American, and then we're going to bring in some mozzarella to go on the other side. And then once we get this on, we're going to let this cheese melt for just, 30 seconds or so, whatever. And then we'll bring in the other stuff that we're going to put on top, like the peppers and then the beef. So just put it on top of there, because this bread is hot. It's going to start this cheese to melting before you even think it's going to. And then once it's starting to melt, we'll add the other things on. So at this point, you're probably safe that this bread is not going to stick to your pan. Along the way though, you just kind of need to move it every now and then just to make sure it doesn't. Because with butter and a pan, sometimes it will stick. So put on your peppers and your onions. And you can put as much of this on as you want. It's your choice how much you want in there, because I put a decent amount in it. And then after this, we're going to bring in some of the beef. Now, when you're putting this on, sometimes the beef will roll off into the pan. No big deal. Just scoop it up with a spoon or whatever and bring it back up, because that's just the way it is, because you're piling really high on this sandwich before we put the top on it. So just go ahead and get everything in there. If there are large pieces hit the pan, just scoop them up and put them back on top. And as you go, you're going to get to a point where you decide how much you want on here. Once you reach that point and you feel that you've got enough beef on it and you've got enough of the peppers and onions and everything else, then we're going to flip the other piece of bread over top and line it up with the bottom one. One thing about this though, when you do it, be careful of your fingers. Now you see this is already really grilled on the other side of the bread at this point. So we're going to let it sit for like this for a minute. Then we're going to flip it over and grill the other side. And there's really not a lot more goes into this, because at this point you're just going to grill it to the point to where you think you want it as dark as you want it to be on the outside. And once it's really grilled, this is ready to go, because your cheese is melting in there. Your beef is already hot. Your vegetables are already hot. So everything is really great. And just flip it a couple times until you feel it's really grilled through. Slice it. You can add mayo, whatever else you want to add to this, and you are ready to eat, because this is something that really is not that hard to do. Just have to be careful not to burn your fingers while you're doing it, because it can be a little testy in the pan. But as I said, once you get it to that point of where it's grilled, it'll look something like this, and it's really great with some french fries. This is just something really a wonderful lunch, dinner, or whatever you want to serve it as. It's a great meal. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, check out the cookbooks available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and if you'd like to, you could order a cookbook at a discounted price, cheaper than Amazon, with shipping that is also cheaper than Amazon. So if you get a chance, check it out, and I hope you have a great day.